All right, today I wanted to talk really quickly about a quick cast iron repair that I did on this Athol dynamic jaw on this vise that I'm refinishing. So I was getting ready to start priming this dynamic jaw, and I noticed that it had some pretty big divots here just underneath the dynamic jaw. It's a really rough casting, and there were some holes and pits in here that I wanted to fill. So I did some research on the internet. I didn't want to stick bondo in there. I wanted to fill it with metal. And working with cast iron is really dangerous because you can wind up cracking castings, and there's a whole bunch of ways it can go wrong, especially if you're an inexperienced welder like I am. So I ran across a bunch of videos where people used this EZ Weld cast iron repair TIG rod. It's supposed to work without preheat, post-heat, peening, any of that stuff. And given that these are really small areas I wanted to fill, I thought it would be perfect. So I tried this yesterday. I had cleaned these areas out, and one of the reasons I needed to fill them was because as I was cleaning this and I started cleaning these little pits, they just kept getting bigger and bigger, and more crap fell out. And then next thing you know, they're fairly large, and I didn't want those to be there if I could get away with it. So cleaned them out, cleaned it really well with acetone, set up my welder for 70 amps. The manufacturer suggests on their website 100 amps, but I can't really trust my welder. It's a Chinese inverter welder, and from what I've seen on the reviews, you can't really trust the front panel that closely, and I'd rather have started low than high. So you can see I filled 3 holes here, here, and here. This one, as will happen with bad cast iron, and this is not good cast iron at all. I think the jaw is steel that might be cast into the mold. You can just see the evidence there. There's no pins, there's no screws or anything. This may be hardened steel. The rest is cast iron, and it is a really rough casting. If you start drilling or anything in any part of this, it'll hit crap, and just all kinds of shit will fall out of there. So that's what happened here. As I started welding, it just kept getting bigger. Eventually it stopped, but I didn't want to go in and clean that out and try and hit it a second time. So these turned out really well. I'm happy with that. I'm fairly happy with this one because it's way less than half the size of what it was. You can see the size of the weld I've got in there. The material seems solid. It was easy to work. It was easy to file and grind down and blend in, and I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm looking forward to using it around the shop to practice on some broken cast iron pieces that I will probably break myself just to get the practice at using it. And maybe I'll do a longer video later as I try and repair something that's cracked all the way through. I do have a couple of pieces of cast iron that I could try that on, and I may do that and post something later. Anyway, thanks for watching. Before I forget, I did want to address a couple of things. So you may be wondering why I didn't show me welding it. The reason, there's several reasons, but the main one is I am not a welder. I'm still learning, so you weren't going to learn anything by watching me do it. The only thing you could have possibly seen was my setup and how I incorporated some copper to be able to touch on and touch off of, but that's because I don't have high frequency start. Someday I will, but when I got this, I didn't even know if I'd be able to learn how to TIG weld, so I didn't want to go and spend $2,000 on a nice, capable welder before I knew if I could even learn to do it. So anyway, that's why I didn't show anything. Oh, and I don't have cameras to get good arc shots. So maybe someday I will. Maybe someday I'll be able to weld well enough so that my arc shots will be worth watching, but not today. So you just see the result. The other thing I wanted to address are anybody who's going to freak out about me doing any work on a vintage vise. This is vintage, yes, but it's not highly valuable. $100 old made in USA vices are dime a dozen, whether it's Colombian, Athol, Rock Island. I mean, I live in a part of the country where I can't open up Craigslist without finding one of these old vices for $100, sometimes less. So I am aware that working on cast iron, I could have potentially induced a future failure. I will be on the lookout for that for sure. But up in here, unlike the Colombian, which I talk about how this casting is hollow, almost all the way up to the top of the jaw. This casting is solid all the way down until where it needs to clear the spindle. So it is solid all the way down to here. I mean, and right very close to where I've got those welds. It's a thick casting. It's not great quality cast iron, but it's thick. So got it, point noted. But thanks for watching.